I'm Chef Sueng and welcome to Cooking with Life. Today, I'm going to show you how to use the oven to prepare some of your favorite foods, or at least my favorite foods. Today I have two proteins and a veg here. We have salmon, which we're going to broil. We have chicken, which we're going to bake, and we have sweet potatoes, which we're going to roast. We're going to start off with the sweet potatoes because they will take the longest. Now, I don't like that you can roll a sweet potato around everywhere. Make sure that you can have a flat surface, okay? Find an area. You might have to even cut a little bit off of that sweet potato, okay? But safety is first. So there we go. We're gonna cut off our ends of the sweet potato, and we're gonna discard those and cut this sort of large sweet potato into 3 even segments. There we go, and one more. Now the reason we do this is because it will cut our cooking time by a third, okay? Otherwise, if we cooked it all together, it would take, at least a third longer. What we're gonna do is simply take a couple pieces of aluminum foil, place our sweet potato right in the center. We're gonna hit it with just a little bit of olive oil. And the olive oil is going to help brown the sweet potatoes even more so than it normally would with all that natural sugar inside. We're gonna top it off with a little bit of salt and a little pepper. And what we're gonna do now is sort of just wrap this up like a present. You wanna take the 2 ends, seal it off, and fold it down twice. Take the sides, seal those up, fold it up, and repeat for the other side. Okay. Go ahead and seal them up. Okay, I'm going to show you how to do that one more time. We'll take our piece of sweet potato, a little bit of olive oil, a little salt, a little pepper. Okay. I'm going to close it up, fold it over a couple times, seal up the sides, fold it up, and do the same for the other side. So now we have a couple neat little packages here. You don't have to do anything else to these. You can just pop them in your oven at 400 degrees. It'll take about 35 to 40 minutes depending on the size of the sweet potato. And when you take them out, they should look something like this. I've done a couple ahead of time. Okay, and the fun part is that you get to sort of unwrap these presents. Okay, and they should look something like this. Okay? Now this is a perfect side dish to any entree that you might have. Just a really beautiful, clean, roasted sweet potato. Okay? Now the cool thing about this sort of roasting technique inside of foil is that you can do this with almost any vegetable. You can do this with a lot of proteins, and you can do this with a lot of spices if you'd like. For instance, here I have some garlic cloves, okay, that I've done the same exact thing to. Just a little bit of olive oil, salt, and pepper. Left them in there for a half hour. You squeeze this onto a nice piece of French bread, or you want to mix it in with your mashed potatoes or top off your cauliflower with it. Delicious, delicious. It doesn't add any calories except for the oil, okay, and it adds a ton of flavor. Next, I'm going to show you how to bake off a piece of protein. Now, baking is probably the leanest way to cook your meats. You're not adding in any oils. You're not going to add in any fats. You're just going to basically keep the meat as it is, add whatever seasonings you want, and use a dry cooking heat to finish off your protein. The only thing we're going to need is a little bit of fat-free Pam spray, and that'll just keep your meat from sticking too much to the foil. Okay, and it makes for easy cleanup too. So what I've done is layered out a nice piece of foil a little bit bigger than the size of our protein, and I curled up the edges. Okay, this is just to catch any maybe residual liquid that leaches out of your chicken or your steak. And all I'm going to do here is season it with a little bit of salt and pepper. Okay. Now this is where you would want to add all of your flavoring agents. You can add paprika, and chili powder and cumin if you want a Mexican sort of flavor profile. If you want something more Mediterranean, you can add in your oregano, you can add in some lemon juice, okay? Basically whatever you want, and you want to do that before you put it into the oven. And that's pretty much it. Really simple, okay, really clean. We're gonna pop it into our 400-degree oven. And we're gonna let that bake anywhere from about 15 to 20 minutes, depending on the size of your protein. Now that chicken was 8 ounces, so it'll take closer to 20 minutes. If you have a 4-ounce piece, it might take 12 to 15 minutes. Now, what I'm gonna do is show you how to broil a nice piece of salmon. Now, broiling is very similar to baking, except you're only cooking from the top side of the oven, okay? So make sure you have your oven preheated to broil and set it at its highest temperature. It's usually at about 500, 520 degrees, okay? Now I've done a little setup here with my sheet tray. I've lined it with a little piece of foil that's just a little bit bigger than our salmon. And all I'm gonna do is place our salmon right on top of that foil, okay? Now this salmon actually has its skin on. If you like the skin, great. If you don't, it's real easy to fillet that off. But I'm gonna leave it with the skin on, okay? And all I'm gonna do to this is hit it with just a little bit of salt. Okay. And that's it. I'm not gonna add pepper because when you broil really close to the heat and at a really, really high heat. And at that temperature, black pepper will actually burn and it'll give you a bitter taste. Okay, so if you're baking, black pepper is fine. If you're broiling, just the salt. Okay, so I'm gonna add in a little bit more salt. Okay. Now, if you're using a really, really lean piece of protein, you definitely wanna add a little bit of olive oil. Okay, if you're using chicken breast or turkey breast. But a nice piece of salmon like this, as you can see, there are little pieces of fat running through it. Again, it's got really good omega-3s. You don't really need to add anything, okay? So we're just gonna slide this into our top rack closest to the broiler. Okay. And we're gonna let that cook for about maybe 3 or 4 minutes. Then we're gonna flip it over. Okay, we're gonna let that cook a little bit more. The reason why I put the skin side down is so that I can finish cooking with the skin side up. That'll let the skin get nice and crispy. If I started with the skin side up and then flipped it over, by the time we take it out of the oven, the skin would actually be sort of chewy and a little soggy, and you never want that. Okay, so our salmon's been in the broiler for about 4 to 5 minutes. We're going to pull it out. Okay, looks gorgeous. Now what you want to see is a few little bits and pieces of nice golden brown. But because this is a salmon, I like to eat my salmon medium. I don't want it cooked fully through. You still want it nice and soft. It's got some give, okay? This is just how I'd like my salmon. If you want yours well done, just go ahead and leave it under the broiler for about another 1.5 to 2 minutes, okay? And that's it. This is how to cook salmon under a broiler. It takes 5 minutes, really easy, really clean. Now it's been about 15 minutes. Let's go ahead and check on our baked chicken. Now if you remember, we didn't add anything to this except just salt and pepper and a quick spray of Pam on the bottom, okay? Now this is basically what you want it to look like. This is a nice piece of baked chicken, okay? You see a few of the edges are nice and browned, okay? But all in all, okay, it is a nice moist piece of chicken that's still really, really hot. Okay. Now this is great to put on your favorite salads once it cools. You can go ahead and use this as an addition to a lot of soups, okay? Or just eat it by itself with a nice side of your roasted sweet potatoes, okay? So today I showed you how to roast sweet potatoes, but you can roast anything. You can roast vegetables, you can roast fruits, you can even roast certain proteins, okay? Just make sure that everything is packed inside aluminum foil, okay? okay? And that you let it go for about anywhere to 35 to 45 minutes. And then with the chicken, we baked off the chicken, okay? You can go ahead and crust this if you want for a crunchier texture. If you want to bake fish, you can definitely do that. Make sure all you do is just salt, pepper, and whatever seasonings you want before you put it into the oven. Okay? And of course, we had our broiled salmon. Now, broiling really cooks the protein quickly, okay, so that you get a nice little crust on the outside. For me, I actually like my fish a nice medium rare, so I didn't take it too long. But if I were broiling maybe a piece of filet or a nice piece of chicken or even maybe a lamb chop, I would put it in there a little bit longer, okay, so that it would get a nice crust on it. Okay, just remember that you can go ahead and use these techniques to make your food taste really good, because eating healthy only works when you're eating something you like. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time on Cooking with Life.